Hello everybody, Bonnie here. My apologies, I am late. It is unfortunately 12:26 and I was supposed to go live at 12:15 p.m. Eastern. So if you're here, if you're jumping on, please let me know. My apologies. What happened was I went to log in. I use a software live stream called StreamYard, and my camera wasn't working. So you weren't going to see me. So I went ahead and tried to fix my connections and rebooted my computer. And when I go ahead and reboot my computer, lo and behold, it has an update to do, which took 10 minutes. So my deepest apologies. StreamYard deleted our broadcast, but I'm popping in here just live with you to really share all about Intuitive Eating Wednesday's topic today, all about mindfulness and mindful eating. So again, if you were trying to find me at 12:15, my deepest apologies, but here I am. So I'm hoping that you are catching this on replay. So today's topic is, like I said, it's all about mindfulness and mindful eating. So I'm just going to get myself situated because, again, I was pretty thrown off with my whole tech issue a moment ago. I just want to be able to see comments. So if you do join me live, come and share some comments as I go through some of the learnings and strategies that I want to share with you today. And if you're watching on replay, you can do that as well. Come and share some comments. Okay, so let's jump in. So I guess I want to start with a question for you, right? Do you know anybody in your life? Have you been around anybody who truly savors every bite of food that they eat? Think about it. Do you know somebody who eats slowly, eats without distraction, can leave over on their plate, food if they're like, oh, I'm done, I don't want to eat anymore, and you're like, wait, what? You only have a bite left. Do you know anybody like that? Let me know. Because if you do, then they are likely practicing mindful eating and perhaps intuitive eating as well. So let's focus today's session on mindful eating. So what is mindful eating? So, it's been thrown around a lot in the media, social media, articles, blogs. I'm sure you've seen quite a bit about mindful eating. But it is a concept that has been around for thousands of years, and it really has helped many people deal with a number of health conditions. So sleeping problems, chronic disease, pain, disordered eating, diabetes, and so forth. And it's based on it's rooted in the Buddhist concept of mindfulness. So when we look to define mindful eating, it's defined as paying attention to your eating experience by utilizing all 5 senses: seeing, tasting, hearing, smelling, and feeling, while also observing and taking in the emotional and the physical sensations and responses that take place both before, during, as well as after the eating experience. Now, there are several fundamental concepts that mindful eating is built on, and I'm kind of gonna throw those out at you. And I'm interested in hearing if you utilize some of these concepts in your own eating experience. So eating slowly and without distraction, looking inward to hear hunger and fullness signals, learning to differentiate between the different types of hunger. And so there are several kinds of hunger. There's biological hunger, there's emotional hunger, and acting on those feelings appropriately. This is something that I teach very deeply within the Whole Body Trust Intuitive Eating program. Really being able to distinguish between biological hunger and emotional hunger, and then how do we deal with each one of those, right? How do we take care of each one? Mindful eating also is, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, it's also all about engaging all 5 senses. It's learning strategies to cope with any guilt or shame or anxiety or any negative feelings that might come up around food and eating. Taking stock of how new foods make you feel. And having a real appreciation for food and the eating experience. Do you have a real appreciation for food in the eating experience, or are you basically like eating to get it over with for lots of different reasons? Now, we do know there are so many benefits to mindful eating. Number one, it reduces stress. Number two, it increases enjoyment and appreciation. Go back to that. I just said that. Appreciation of eating and of food. It improves the digestion. Hands down, it improves the digestion. It does help in disordered eating behaviors by decreasing those behaviors, such as binge eating, emotional eating, and so on. And it allows you to take charge of your food, right? Not having the feeling that food controls you, but instead that you're in charge, because you are. Now, we know that diets strip you of the trust that you have had in yourself and your body and food. Mindful eating, on the path to becoming an intuitive eater, can help you really tune back in. With each eating experience, build that trust back. Now, there are some misconceptions around intuitive eating that I want to touch on, and there's something that I really want you to be aware of, and I'll get to that in just a moment. Let's just kind of talk about some misconceptions. Now, like you probably know with intuitive eating, lots and lots of misconceptions out there. So the same thing happens with mindful eating, really with anything, right? You might hear things like, well, I can't eat this or I can't eat that. No, it's not about can and can't, okay? Okay, most of these misconceptions, by the way, do come from the culture we live in, the toxic diet culture that we live in, right? And so we're going to bust some of those. The first misconception is, well, I'm going to use air quotes, if I'm doing mindful eating, I can't eat dessert. I've heard that. These are from people that I've actually heard. Because I'm mindfully not choosing to eat dessert, so I can't have dessert. Well, no, that is not true. Mindful eating is all about reconnecting yourself with the enjoyment and the appreciation of all food, even dessert. Now, if you've been a lifelong dieter, perhaps dessert is on that can't have food list. And that is likely why this would be a thought for you as you engage in mindful eating. If mindful eating is being used to lose weight, it's the same misconception when people use intuitive eating to lose weight. Another misconception around mindful eating is there's a list of good foods and bad foods, right? So no, not at all. As we know within intuitive eating, the same holds true for mindful eating, is that there's no good and bad foods. We don't label food as good, bad, healthy, unhealthy, can have, can't have, legal, illegal. We want foods to be neutral, right? So in the mind of the mindful eater, food is neutral. And placing foods into categories of good and bad, healthy, unhealthy, is rooted in diet culture. Now, we all know food is just food, but as a mindful eater, you are deciding what you really want to eat based on your internal guides, your hunger, your fullness cues, your satisfaction, the messages that the body is giving you. Okay, misconception number 3, mindful eating is just another diet. Well, that happens to be the trap that a lot of people fall into. Mindful eating, here's the thing, mindful eating is the furthest thing from a diet, but unfortunately, we live in this culture, as I said, this toxic diet culture, which there are headlines, social media headlines, misinformation, unreliable research about health and weight loss and so forth, and mindful eating is oftentimes thrown into this mix and is promoted in the wrong way, just like intuitive eating is. So if you've seen that, I would love to hear from you. And by the way, if you are here with me live, please say hello so I know that you're here. As I said when I first started, I apologize for being late today, but I had major tech issues. But we're here now, so better late than never. So if you're watching with me live, say hello. Oh, Darcy, hey Darcy. So glad you're here. So go back and when I'm done and re-listen to some of what I've already just said. I think you'll find it helpful. So in any event, mindful eating is not a diet, but people do use it as a diet. And I'm going to share a little story with you in a little while about that. But it's really all about, go back to that, listening to your body, utilizing those internal cues and just really taking stock of how you're feeling before, during, and after a meal. And that can tell you so much wonderful information. So I'm going to come back to a story about mindful eating and how it is oftentimes used as a diet, okay? Another misconception is that, well, I don't have time for mindful eating. Let's put it that way, right? It's so time consuming. What do you want me to do? Actually sit and just eat? I don't have time for that. Let me know if you say things like that. Mindful eating, it's not that it takes a lot of time. Think of it as your self-care. You taking care of yourself. You taking care of you. Nourishment is really important, right? Remember, I always like to say, whether it's with the intuitive eating or it's learning about mindful eating, it's all about the journey. It's not about the destination. When you're dieting, it's about the destination, where you got to go to. And that the end of that journey, is always about a number on a scale. That's not what mindful eating is all about. That's not what learning about intuitive eating is all about. It's a process. And in the beginning, when you're learning to be way more mindful of your eating, yeah, okay, it can take up some extra time as you're learning to slow down, as you're learning to tune in, as you're learning to ask questions, as you're learning to put your fork down, analyzing your hunger and your fullness, and so on and so forth. It takes time, but with practice, you will soon think less about the time and the focus, because the enjoyment in your meal is tremendous, and it just becomes part of you. Another misconception I have heard is that, well, with mindful eating, I could say goodbye to my social life if I want to eat mindfully. Like nobody else eats mindfully, right? No, many people believe that you can't eat mindfully when you're eating with others that might not be practicing mindfulness, but it really is not the case. Mindful eating teaches you how to focus your attention so you can actually engage in conversation with people you're dining with, while also remaining present with your meal. And I know that for so many people that's hard, but with practice you will get that. As you go through this amazing journey and you shift your mindset away from dieting to intuitive eating and mindfulness and mindful eating, you will, and I'm telling you, I promise you, you will learn how to be able to socialize, be present with others, while also remaining very focused and present with your meal. It'll become second nature. And that's actually everything that I say about intuitive eating, right? Intuitive eating will become second nature, a part of your core as you continue to practice. So how do we start? Actually, before we talk about that, I do want to clarify something. A lot of people use the term mindful eating and intuitive eating interchangeably. Now, way back when I was first learning about intuitive eating, I did the same thing. I was talking about mindful eating when I was really trying to talk about intuitive eating. But over time, the clarity came, and I want to share that clarity with you because they are not the same. Mindful eating is an important part of the intuitive eating journey. Yes. Absolutely. In the intuitive eating, we have one of the principles called Discover the Satisfaction Factor, all about pleasure and satisfaction and utilizing mindfulness. But somebody who is a dieter, who still has a diet mentality, well, they can eat mindfully, but what happens is if they haven't rid themselves of their diet mentality, they turn mindful eating into a diet. So here's my story. Lovely clients that I have had, I still have actually, when we began working together, when she came to see me, she really wanted to lose weight. She hadn't heard about intuitive eating. I tried to, share a few tidbits with her, but she wasn't ready for it. And I said, fine, no problem. Let's work together on nutrition education, right? I don't do diets, so we're not going to diet. I'm going to teach you about nutrition and how to make some changes to integrate wholesome foods into your life. And we did talk about fun foods. How do we balance that? And it was great. And yes, she was losing weight. But what became more and more apparent was that, and how I knew this was in her language when she was speaking, she was using mindful eating as just another diet. Like all those other long lists of diets, right? Have you ever taken an inventory of all the diets you've ever done? List them out. Well, mindful eating would be on one of those lists, just like any of those other diets, which I will not name. And I brought this to her attention. And I said, I just want you to pay attention to your language, the language of a dieter. And you're turning mindful eating into a diet. And it was like a light bulb for her. She said, wow, I really am. And that's when she transitioned into, what is intuitive eating? Tell me more. And how do I get back to being an intuitive eater like I was born? And so we really worked on mindset. And eventually we brought mindfulness and mindful eating back into the mix. But this time, she was utilizing the mindful eating techniques and strategies from an intuitive perspective. I want to hear from you. Have you ever utilized mindful eating as another way to lose weight? And it has become the mindful eating diet? Pop a comment. Let's talk about it. So we're not talking today about intuitive eating. We're focusing on one aspect of the journey, which is mindful eating. How do you get started with mindful eating? A couple of cute, quick tips. Number one, prioritize your meal times. Give plenty of time to organize, prepare, and eat your meals, right? Rushing through mealtime, it hinders your ability to hear anything your body is telling you, right? Check in, ask yourself questions. How do I feel during my meal? How am I feeling at this point? Is it pleasurable? Is it not? Do I like it? Not? Am I having anxiety about my eating or whatever? How is my body feeling? Like really get into the eating experience. Use your 5 senses, right? What does your food look like before you begin eating? Look at the food. Look at the colors and the textures. What does it look like during the meal? Check in with how it tastes and what's the temperature like after the meal. Think about your experience. Reflect on that experience. How did this meal make me feel? These are a few things you can do just to get started. Very important. Very important point here. Be aware of your desire or your intention to begin mindful eating. Again, it takes practice. We've talked about that. But what is your intention? That is something that I really want you to pause to think about, okay? If your intention to eat mindfully is to lose weight, then you likely are turning mindful eating into another diet. I want you to stop and give thought to that. And then we can talk about it, okay? So today, I really wanted to cover some of the key concepts around mindful eating. Share with you how, number one, it is not interchangeable with intuitive eating, but it is an important part of the intuitive eating journey. And I want you to be aware and really look to see, are you turning mindful eating into a diet? So give thought to those points and come on replay, watch, listen, and pop some comments in, and I'll come back and I'll respond. All right. If you want to learn more about intuitive eating, of which mindful eating is a part of the journey, and you're just not sure about the whole intuitive eating process, I know we have so many new people in our group here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please take a look at my starter intuitive eating course, intuitiveeatingbasics.com. It's called Intuitive Eating Basics. You can learn all about it at intuitiveeatingbasics.com. It's a very reasonably low-priced product where you can dip your toes into intuitive eating to get started on this journey, as well as learn about hunger, fullness, mindfulness, and reconnecting with your inner wisdom. If you have any questions on that, you just let me know. All right, that's it for today. Again, I apologize for being late, tech problems, but we go with the flow. I hope you've learned something today. Please let me know, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.